As we continue to talk about North Korea, there's a question about the president's role in all of this, our president as well as the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, but President Trump's role in terms of how he communicates, especially when he communicates over Twitter. A North Korean official had been saying that the president is actually adding fuel to the fire. Now, you could argue that's just an excuse for aggression or something like that, or maybe there's something to it. From the Independent Women's Forum, Hadley Heath Manning is with us. GOP pollster Chris Wilson is also with us, and Democratic strategist Andrew Feldman is here as well. Hadley, let me start with you, because we always talk about things as they're perceived here, what we think, say, of North Korea, but what they think of us is also important. Do you think the way the president speaks publicly, sometimes off the cuff as he did yesterday, or as we know, sometimes in the way that he tweets and the language that he uses, affects that perception? If so, how?
That's right. It's sort of the tweets heard around the world, right? Twitter has become, and social media has become an opportunity for not just those of us who are sort of nobodies to express our opinions, but people like President Trump and world leaders pay attention to this kind of thing. So, of course, the words we use and the words our leaders use are important. I think a lot of what we're seeing out of North Korea is not just a response to the president's Twitter account, but to the U.S.'s changing stance and actions in the Middle East, like what happened in Syria with the missile strike. So this isn't just a response to words, but a response to action. And the U.S. Position on North Korea cannot be one of turning a blind eye, cannot be one of inaction. Obviously, the atrocities there regarding human rights and the tough talk coming out of North Korea, quite frankly. President Trump isn't the only one talking tough about a potential conflict.
When you think about it, Chris, I don't know what your point of view is on this, but if you think about the way the news stories are reported when it comes to North Korea here, you'll often hear in mainstream reports something like, oh, that crazy person over in North Korea, and that is a reference to the leader of the country in Kim Jong-un, and that's how it is reported here. And being serious, that's how it's reported all the time and how it's often being discussed. And that may be the right way to discuss it. But I wonder how the conversations are there in North Korea when they see the rhetoric used on Twitter or the conversations that are off the cuff and comments that are made by the President of the United States, and how that affects how they deal with us, the unpredictable nature of this new president. What do you think?
Well, I think Andrew's point a little bit ago was probably exactly right in terms of how this is being dealt with in North Korea. Is Kim Jong-un came to power in 2012, and so in his entire reign, he's had nothing but the Obama policy of strategic patience, which is really just a synonym for doing nothing, to deal with. And during that time, they have, let's be blunt, they have prepared for war with the United States. They are perilously close to shrinking a nuclear weapon and putting it inside an ICBM that they can launch and land here in the United States. And there are reports coming out of the Pentagon that say that could happen as soon as 2018. So we are in a situation now where time has run out. We may be as little as a few months away from them having the capabilities of attacking us. And look, they already have attacked us. You look at the hacking, the cyber warfare attacks that have taken place. This is a situation where I believe the approach that the president is taking is probably the right one. We cannot stand back and do nothing at this point. And let's face it, this regime cares about nothing but staying in power. North Korea is nothing but a prison camp for its citizens. They don't care about diplomacy. They don't care about economic sanctions. And the fact is, a nuclear warhead is their ace in the hole to be able to stay in power. And as long as they think they can achieve that, then they don't care what the rest of the world says. And that's why it is so important that we no longer sit back and practice strategic patience.
You're referencing Andrew's point. Andrew Peek, who was on with us a few moments ago. Andrew Feldman is with us now, and I want to ask you, Andrew, what you think of all this in terms of how the communications strategies impact the policy that ends up being made after the communications go out.
Connell, it's great to be with you again. Look, I've said for a long time that Twitter diplomacy or Twitter foreign policy is not the way the president should be going about things. But look, those are things he does. He is, a loose cannon in that sense. But here's the issue. This is not a partisan issue we're dealing with, right? Both Democrats and Republicans can acknowledge we need to make sure that North Korea does not get a nuclear warhead. So, look, the question here is, what happens with President Trump's inexperience on foreign policy? Because he is one of the most inexperienced foreign policy presidents we've had in decades. And I get worried that when he's tweeting up a storm, that this is not a good way to make sure we are working with China and working with our allies to stop a nuclear warhead from happening. But look, let's be clear. This is not a partisan issue.
He would argue, I'm sure, Hadley, don't you think, the president, that he has made some progress with China and did so face-to-face with the Chinese president? I don't know if it's true or not. Time, I guess, is one of those, I hate the phrase time will tell, but actually will in this case. And what do you think of what the president has gotten done so far with China?
Well, that's right, and some analysts would suggest that we're not going to find a solution to what's going on in North Korea without help from China. And obviously the situation there with our allies in the Asia region is complicated, but when it comes to China's recent decision to stop importing coal from North Korea, I think undeniably that's a sign of progress. That's a reason for cautious optimism. 56% of the American people in a recent CBS poll suggest they've got some misgivings about President Trump's ability to handle North Korea. 39% of Americans confident in his ability. So as we continue to watch things unfold, we can see step by step. I do believe we've seen some steps in the right direction, some steps of progress, and maybe that will increase the American public's perception that President Trump can handle this.
We're getting closer and closer, Chris, and Andrew, to a commercial break. So I just want to give both of you a quick chance to say what you're expecting or fearful of maybe this weekend. Andrew, you were jumping in there, so why don't you go first real quick and make your point, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead.
Look, I think we are making some progress on China. The problem is the president doesn't communicate to the American people what's going on, right? So the question is here, you know, what is really happening in those meetings? I hope that he's continuing to not only have tough talk, but continuing to talk to these leaders and actually, you know, make some progress. And we need Mike Pence to really lay out a strategy. Since the Syrian situation, we haven't heard a strategy. We need a strategy. The American people deserve that, and I hope we get a strategy from Mike Pence.
What do you say to that?
Trump.
He's heading to South Korea. What do you say to that, Chris? That the idea that there's military action, yes, we've seen it in Syria, and we've now seen it yesterday in Afghanistan, but there also has to be a strategy, a longer-term political strategy that is included with that. What do you say, Chris?
Well, I think Donald Trump has made it very clear from the very beginning, whether you agree with it or not, that he's not going to telegraph what his strategy is. He was very critical of the Obama administration for saying what they were going to do, and then it would fail because the enemy knew what was happening. I mean, frankly, I think there is a little bit of benefit when it comes to dealing with North Korea for there to be a bit of a chaos theory approach to it, and the fact that they have no idea what's going on, which is a very different approach than, again, the failed strategic patience approach to the Obama administration. And the reports coming out of China and President Tsai's comment that being far more supportive than we've seen in the past, I think shows that they recognize the destabilization of Korea could be very damaging to the entire region. And hopefully they're coming around to more of the U.S. point of view in terms of what has to be done here.
We'll watch it all weekend. Hadley and Chris and Andrew, thank you. It's a good discussion back and forth between all three of you.